the Grand Sheik and the Chairman of Martial America are in power to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of Martial America. The assistant Grand Sheik in all affairs, if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Martial America. Islam, I want to welcome everyone to our national conference call. Normally, this is headed by our Grand Sheik, who's out on a bit of an emergency this evening, and what we want to do, I'll be sitting in this place. Our subject matter will still be the malignancy of the Western Freemasonry and its effect on the Moorish Americans here, there, and everywhere, as well as we will be featuring our subject chapter for the week, chapter 42, weakness. And speaking of our host chapter for the week, on weakness, we like to read the Holy Instruction from the Prophet, ayat 13 through 18. Psalm. Join esteem with our admiration. Unite friendship with the love. Who shall thou find the end content so absolute? The path is raptures, tranquility, more worth than ecstasy. Allah has given thee no good without its admixture of evil, but he has given thee also the means of throwing off the evil from it. As joy is not without its alloy of pain, so neither is sorrow without its portion of pleasure. Joy and grief, though unlike, are united. Our own choice can only give them to us entirely. Islam, I want to thank you. With this special chapter, it deals with the dualities in which we have been blessed with, because if you did not have the challenges of knowing the difference between night and day, up and down, in and out, what's hot and cold, if you did not know the world of dualities, then you would not be able to fortune to exercise those powerful tools that you have, the instruments like thinking, reasoning, willing, understanding, remembrance. All of these tools are instruments that you have to ward off and to make decisions as to whether or not you yourself must operate, be it cold, be it hot, be it time of war or peace, be it time of solemn or distress, be it times or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whether you're in the ocean or the desert, you will be able to make the decisions with the comparison of the two. So what they extend much honor, because this also lets you know that if you do not exercise your thought pattern, thought activity, if you do not use reason, if you're not thinking, if you have no understanding like the mule, then you're going to suffer at the mercy or the mercilessness of weakness. Okay? Islam. More so, what we want to do, we want to go into a subject matter for tonight. I'll be sitting in until the Grand Sheik arrives from his call. The thing about it is that this is a subject matter that we here at the Moorish American National Government, it doesn't bother us to address this issue, okay? It doesn't bother us because we are talking about the world of dualities. We're talking about how Allah does not give you any good without the mixture of evil, okay? What we're speaking about is the malignancies of Western Freemasonry. Now, the thing about it is that when it comes to Western Freemasonry, I was taught virtually everything there was to know about Western Freemasonry from my first instructor, Dr. R.J. Bay. This is me personally, okay? This is back in the early 70s. But it was the way that he taught it to us. I later became very close friends with the late Mayor William Donald Schaefer, who later went on to become the governor for the state of Maryland and the comptroller. He just had his burial just last week. Well, this week. Sorry about that. Wait a minute. What's today? Okay, it was this week. Okay. And Mayor Schaefer, the reason why I brought him up, because you may notice in my book there's a picture of me sitting in the mayor's chair for the city of Baltimore with the mayor himself picture of me sitting in his chair. Well, the main thing about Mayor William Donald Schaefer, while he was the mayor of the city of Baltimore, he was also the head of the entire Scottish Rite Order for the entire northwestern region of the United States. He's a very, very powerful Mason. Very, very powerful Mason, okay? And needless to say, that was a contributing factor in his reign as both being mayor and then later on as governor for the state of Maryland, as well as then when he retired, they brought him out of retirement just to be the comptroller for the state of Maryland, okay, down in Annapolis. I'm just pointing this out to say that Mayor William Donald Schaefer, be it he was a Mason, but the thing about it was that he utilized his powers of Western Freemasonry for the good it may be for the city of Baltimore, and he helped the Moors tremendously, okay? In fact, on many, many occasions, I asked him to favor the Moors, and he never once reluctant or held back, or he's given us the access to the Baltimore Civic Center, which at that time, you know, held many sports events and theaters and what have you, for $1. Okay? I mean, for the entire week, for $1. We had proclamations that he would sign for the Moors, which we had the keys to the city, and the Moors had access to everything that belonged to the city of Baltimore, the zoo, public transportation for free, the whole week, the whole Moorish American week, okay? And so I'm just giving you the powers that's there. One of the greatest things other than sitting in the mayor's chair that he anointed me with that particular response, knowing that I was not a Mason, but he did know I was a Moslem, okay? But I could also speak Masonry, and I'll explain that to you later, okay? But another thing that I wanted to point out about what Mayor Schaefer did under his powerful, powerful station, he sent me over to Salisbury, which is Eastern Shore, Maryland, in order to meet with the head, the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, which I did. The only thing that I had in my hand when I got there to the Klan headquarters in Salisbury, Maryland, was my Quran, the 77 Quran, okay? And there was all kinds of things to enforce the idea of the Klan all over the walls and what have you. And they told me then, and repeated later, that I was the only African that ever had foot in the headquarters, okay? And it was a really trying experience, but what I gained out there, I showed them in my Quran, where that we, the Moorish Americans, did not desire to amalgamate or marry into the pale-skinned nation of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion. In fact, that we, the Moorish Americans, were returning the church and Christianity back to the hands of the Europeans, okay? Because that was something that they had created for by their forefathers for their earthly salvation. And when they read that in my book, you know, I didn't have no power from that day to this, okay? Anything that we desired, that we needed for it to come down to putting on parades or security assignments, there was police department throughout the entire state of Maryland, state troopers. When we had to unite efforts, we put on a festival out in the park. That it was the uniting of the Mayor Schaefer with, you must remember that the KKK originated, got its foundation from the Western Freemasons. Okay, now bear that in mind now, because a lot of people don't know back in 1863 exactly where in the world the Ku Klux Klan came from. They used to call them night riders. Okay, and they reigned a 100-year terror upon the Moors with no government intervention until 1963 during the Kennedy administration, okay, Johnson administration, whatever, okay. It was 100 years. No one ever put up any kind of nothing, barriers or say illegal things or charges against the Ku Klux Klan, so how they was terrorizing the ex-slaves, okay? And in fact, they were used to do it so much, they developed a whole new word called picnic, because once a week they would, or once a month or whenever it was, depending on what state, they would actually what they call pick a nigger. And they would lynch them, barbecue them, tar them, fell them, whatever they felt they wanted to, castrate them before death. Some of the rituals, very rituals they had to go through in a lodge, was some of the things that they would actually practice on the bodies of some innocent African brother, and sometimes sisters too, okay? So I wanted to point this out because in order to be a Western Freemason, number one, you got to have power, okay? And a lot of the Moors, African, those who are descendants from Africa, a lot of my brothers think to this day that they are Masons, and nothing could be further from the truth. They have a criteria within the lodge, be it the Scottish Rite Order, the York Rite Order, well, it doesn't really matter. The thing about it is that one of the main criteria is that you had to be age 21, you had to be pale skin, okay, age 21, pale skin male, that is, age 21, with sound mind and body, meaning you had to have all your limbs and parts. You couldn't come in there like Long John Silver making a shoe print and a dot. You had to have both feet, okay? You had to have both arms and your head, you know, eyes and things. Another criteria for becoming a Western Freemason was that you also had to have employment. You had to have some kind of money. There was a question that was put out in last night assignment leading towards tonight, and the question it was two of them. One was, where in the Divine Constitution bylaws does Noble Drew Ali speak about Western Freemasons? Okay, and that was the question. I received a couple of calls from a couple of the Moors. I won't call them by name. A couple of students that was in the class last night, and neither one got it right. Okay, so, but I will tell you in just a minute. Also, as part of the assignment, was asked in chapter 48 in our Circle 7 Quran, where does Noble Drew Ali mention Western Freemason again? Okay, and what he had to say about it, okay, in chapter 48. Well, I just went through that particular part. He said that when they speak about Western Freemason, he calls it the church and Christianity, all right? And he said that we're returning that back to the European nations. Now, the catch here is more is that when you have to remember that the purpose for Western Freemasons, which began in a tavern over in England, Britain, okay, which you must understand that Britain was, they had laws, slave laws, in their constitution. In other words, they had legalized slavery of African people long before the effect. There was no United States. There was just colonies, okay? And when they ultimately got some of the aristocrats together, those who were able to travel, you know, by ship to different parts of Africa and other parts of the world, they call a big you would never find a lady in a pub or a bar, okay? Now, the reason why I'm giving this a special history because this is where the original, the lodges began. This is where they got the beginning, okay? And this is long before the, well, actually the early part of the 17th century. And what they utilized was part of their lounges that they had in their various estates, because as they were showing they were big game hunters, they would have the heads, their skins, the different animals that they had killed in Africa, okay? And they would have them stuffed, be it a rhinoceros or elephant, or they may have a tusk or something, but they would have something. They would put it on the wall, okay, or on the floor, or somewhere that it was a big thing because it showed that they was a conqueror, okay? And this idea behind being a conqueror usually was centered around the fact that they had gunpowder and firearms as a result of the gunpowder, okay? And a lot of the, what they call uncivilized countries did not have access to gunpowder or the firearms that gunpowder produced, okay? And as a result of this, this is what brought a power through Europe, was when they were able to go from swords, knives, to guns, okay? And although they had taken the powder, actually most of the gunpowder as they know it was actually created in China, okay? But they were mostly using it for fireworks and things of this nature. But anyway, to give you just a little bit more of the history, this pub, which constantly produced the Scottish Rite Order, well, actually it was the York Rite first, and then the Scottish Rite. And as a result of that, they later became known, got together, since they was, the one thing they had in common was that they were conquerors of Africa because they were big game hunters. They had the heads of virtually every species of animal, be it bird or alligator, whatever. Some kind of way or another, they had these things as trophies, okay? Now, you got to remember, boys, bear in mind, the reason I'm giving you this history because it's going to come back a little later. For example, when I spoke about these trophies, being the heads of animals and things of this nature, later you're going to find that the Great Seal, that some of the Moors, like the Great Seal Organization, Tariq Tariq but CMA, the so-called Great Seal that the United States have to this very day. Look on your dollar bills, you'll see it. Okay, go to any federal building, you will also see the Great Seal, which is the pyramid with a detached, all CNI. Okay. In my book, the Noble Drew Ali, The Exhuming of a Nation, the chapter on Western Freemasonry has an attachment to it. At the end of that chapter called The Truth About the Great Seal, okay? And there you'll find a history that is more or less giving you everything that I'm giving you now, except it's more in depth. We don't have the kind of time to go as much into the detail right now. But I'm just giving you the origin of where the Great Seal got its start from, okay? Before the Great Seal, which was the pyramid. Now, bear in mind, this Great Seal that the United States now has for its federal buildings, for its federal seal. In other words, every nation has its grand seal, its national seal, okay? Some people, I think it's, man, I feel like I'm trying to think of the nation right now. But let's just say the Zulus, okay? There's one of their symbols or their seal is they have two spears and a shield, okay? And don't hold me to that because I know there's another country that really do They have a shield and two spears crossing behind the shield. And this is their Grand National Seal. You'll also find it also in the flag, okay? The reason why I want to point this out because every nation has their own seal. Well, the seal of the United States, ironically enough, is when you got the eagle on one side with the 13 things in its claws, 13 arrows for war on one side, and you got 13 olive branches on the other side for peace. But on the other side, that same coin, that dollar, you're going to find the other great seal, which is a pyramid. Now, I know that I don't have to tell anybody online right now that the pyramid, you're not going to find pyramids built in Europe. So why would the European countries, the foremost European country here in the West, the United States, why would they have a African pyramid on there as their great seal? Okay? Since they really don't have that much love for Africa, and as you know, you can look around today and tell how much love the European have for Africa right now, okay? If it wasn't for the diamonds and the gold and some other minerals out there, well, anyway, we don't have to go into that part. But let me tell you what the prophet had to say about this, okay? The prophet describes Egypt in this Holy Quran, as being the capital of the entire dominion of Africa. The capital. Okay? So what would be the greatest symbol of this special capital that would denote Egypt would be its pyramids, of course. Okay? So in the conquest of the capital of the entire dominion of Africa, this is what brought about the Great Seal. And why is the eye detached? Because the all-seeing eye, where else would you see that all-seeing eye? Oh my goodness. You find it on your Divine Minister paper. You'll also find it on the charters, okay? You'll also find it throughout everything that has to do with the consciousness where God and man are one, okay? But the only thing about it is on our documents, the eye is not detached, okay? It is detached on the federal, and the reason why is because the eye itself, which represents the God, the African God man, hear it out. The eye represents the African God man, where the man and God are one. But that particular phase of knowledge or wisdom, if you will, has been known as the rejected cornerstone. Okay? That means the rest of the family of nations has completely rejected God. Or should I say, that aspect of the African God man. And if you look around the world today, you can name on one hand the countries that hold to high esteem where God and man are one. Okay? Because that's been all but forbidden or forgotten. Today's, most of today's religions demonstrate with God being 3 or 4 different entities like the spirits or Holy Ghost and every kind of thing, or at least at the very utmost is something or someone or something that's outside of the self. Okay? That's what most of religions teach today. Unless you're going through a lifelong religious thing, which is the way the ancient culture was actually began, where that like the Qi in China, or you go through the yoga in India, or different other things that they would go through, meditation otherwise, where that they would bring back this God and man knowledge through some form of exercise and or meditation. Okay? But let's get back to the Scottish New York Rite Orders. Because I want to, you have to know the history of a thing in order to appreciate its value. All right? Moorish science itself is a good knowledge of history and reliance upon Allah. This is Moorish science. You must have a good knowledge of history. Now, when I say knowledge, it means that it's something that you can have your faith in. When I speak about knowledge, a good knowledge of history, it doesn't mean what you believe, what you think perhaps is true. Okay? Quite the contrary. All right? And the reason why this is so important, because if you do not have a good knowledge of history, you will be just like the Moorish Americans have been for the last 82 years, out of your mind, and thinking that that which has enslaved you can also free you. So don't hang up the phone yet. Bear with me, okay? That right there is an impossibility. So I'm going to show you how it is that Moors have gotten into a place where they think there's something beneficial in Western Freemasonry for the children of African descent. Okay? Let's go back to the history table. All right, now your Scottish and York Rite Orders, later known as Jubilar and Jubilant, meaning Britain and France. Okay? They were the heads of the, so to say, what was later called the, it was called later the Christian Crusade, but it actually was the Catholic Crusade. Okay? Not the Christian Crusade, because you must remember the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. It was Catholicism. Okay? This was the first church, or should I say, the first rule of government under the European laws. Okay? And as a result of that, this is what also later derived your Scottish and York Rite Orders. They really had no need for a God, because the European nature alone would not allow them to serve any God that they could not physically see. They had to see whatever God they would serve, they had to see that God. As simple as that, okay? That's why the prophet supported that when they said that this right here was created by your forefather for your earthly salvation. Your earthly God, it means the God that you have to see. You got to see your God, okay? While the Moorish America have an earthly and divine salvation. See the difference? Okay. Now, you find that in your Scottish and York Rite Orders, France and Britain mainly, you find that this secrecy, the main thing they kept as the utmost secret was the fact that they had stolen or pillaged many, in fact, virtually all the sciences out of Egypt. And they had, as a result of that, then they had assassinated the very people in which they stole the sciences from. So that could nobody, or at least they would not let other people know where they got the sciences from. I'm talking about sciences, not just mathematics or chemistry or something. I'm talking about all the sciences, all right? A lot of them don't even realize that Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, all these, they teach us out of Egypt, just like the noble prophets did, okay? Everyone, because Egypt was the center of the world's highest thought. When it comes to medicines, I mean, everything. We used to do things like cloning, surgeries, brain surgeries, heart surgeries, and this is thousands of years ago, okay? So all these sciences was later pillaged by the Europeans, and then under the force of might, the gunpowder, which made the difference in all the world when it comes to war, okay? That sort of sheltered or was able to create a Ethiopian line between the Europeans and the rest of the nations of the earth that was people of hue. And most of this line was drawn by gunpowder. Okay? Not to mention aggression, not to mention war and murder and things of this nature. Okay? So I have to give you that bit of a history because later on, and further conquering Africa, something else took place around the 14th century, to be 1403. This is before the Catholic order really got into its full bloom. But in 1403, Egypt sensed that there was something mighty wrong with the Moors being up in Europe because they had not seen the educational fallout or growth from Europe, although the Moors had been there for 1,000 years at that time. Okay? And, well, not quite 1,000, I'm sorry. For about 400 years at that time. They were there 800 altogether, okay? And during that time, the Moorish assignment, now I'm going to let you know why it is that we ended up in slavery, so listen up, okay? The assignment that the Moors had was to carry the sciences into Europe, but to do it in such a manner that the European was to honor and accept Islamism, in other words, the knowledge of the self as God, okay? And this had to be interwoven between all and each and every one of the sciences. They call it salvation. When you take the knowledge of the consciousness of God and man, and you interwove it with medicine, you intertwine it with mathematics, you interlock with the universal sciences of the science of the universal order of the planets and the systems, okay? You go through the chemistries of knowing H2O and et cetera, et cetera. So, but woven in between all these sciences was always the consciousness of the universal order of God and man is one. Well, the Moors, being up in Europe for so long, hundreds of years, and not having them women and children, so they started amalgamating and jumping up down the European nations. And next thing you know, they created two new nations of people, the Italians and Sicilians was among them, okay? And as a result of this, they also lost the impact of what it is they were sent to do. And they too have become weakened and began to take on the characteristics of the European nation. They started doing things that they knew was not a part of their culture, not a part of their church. In other words, they no longer became the teacher. They were being taught, okay? They were being taught about cannibalism. They were being taught about other things that was an earthly manifest, okay? So, as a result of that, the next thing you know, by 1403, Egypt had placed the five-pointed open green star into the furthermost coast of West Africa, which was Morocco, known as the Gibraltar, okay? And the Gibraltar, the reason why the star was placed there, because Morocco became known as Egypt in the west, or the furthest west. Still, the purpose of Egypt remained the same. But you talk about 1403. This is where Morocco got the star, okay? Now, the history of the star, if you notice, when Noble Drew speaks about the Moorish star, the Moorish flag, he asked what kind of flag is the Moorish. Of course, a lot of Moors, they still hold it. He's Morocco. You know, he didn't say nothing about Morocco. He said, what kind of flag is the Moorish? Just like he said, the Moorish Science Temple, or what is your nationality, Moorish American, or his nationality, Moorish American, or who are the Moorish Americans. So anytime he used the word Moorish, he's talking about himself and his people, us. Write that down, please, because if you don't, you're going to get taken off, okay? You're going to lose it. So write it down. Anytime and every time the Prophet Noble Drew uses the word Moorish, M-O-O-R-I-S-H, He's speaking about himself and his people, us. Okay? Now, you may not think that's all that significant, but if you don't pay attention to that, then you will not understand what he said when he asked the question, what kind of flag is the Moorish? And in your mind, your eyes see Moorish, but your lying eyes say Moroccan. He didn't say nothing about Morocco. He knows the difference because he even asked the question later on about our rule in Morocco. What was the title of our rule in Morocco? So he knows the difference between Morocco and Moorish. Morocco is not Moorish. It's two separate things, two different things. One may descend from the other, but it's two different things, okay? It was a whole new era. The Moorish era and the Moroccan era was two separate periods, okay? Anyway, getting back. Noble Drew Ali early on spoke about and made us aware of the fact that Western Freemasons, he spoke to the Moors many, many times, and Moors, I've come to pull the covers off all the secret societies. He wanted the Moors to know exactly what had enslaved them. Also, you can write this down, Moors, before I even get into it. When it comes down to a definition of a Western Freemason, then there is another term that is synonymous with Western Freemason. It's called slave master. Slave master. Okay? It is synonymous. In other words, you use it equal to or in place of or at the same time as the term Western Freemason. Okay? Now, it's important that you make a note of this, is because if you do not, then later on in this class, you'll still be thinking that an African man can be a slave master, can be a Mason. Okay? So, right, to make a note now, all right? Now, in Act 6, because this was the assignment here last night, Act 6, because the question, the assignment was, where in Noble Drew Ali's Divine Constitution bylaw does he speak about Western Freemasons? Well, the answer is in Act 6. Okay? In Act 6. Where did he speak about the Western Freemasons? In Act 6. Okay? All right. You working with it now? All right, here we go. Noble Drew Ali says that we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, right? And the reason why we're doing that is so that the Moors, they may know that they are not, that they are part and parcel of this said government. What said government? What government has the prophet spoke about in all the divine constitutional bylaw? Everything is Moorish. Moorish. Not the United States of America. That is another one of them lying eyes that the Moors have had down through the years. They read the Divine Constitution of Moorish Scientific of America or the Divine Constitution of Moorish America. Either one don't make no difference, okay? And some reason in a lying mind, they come up with the United States, which has never been mentioned in this Constitution at all, nowhere, okay? Going on, the prophet said that it be a part and parcel of this said government, and no, they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopia, because these names was given to slaves, but Western Freemasons in 1779 and lasted 1865 during the time of slavery. Whoa, Pleasant Bay, what have you done? The prophet ain't saying nothing about no Western Freemason. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. Here we go, more. This is your Divine Constitution bylaw, okay? Act 6. Act 6. The prophet said, and this is after the word, because. Okay? Because these names, speaking about who is it that named you, that named the Moors of Northwest, South prophet shores of Africa. Look, the last sentence in Act 6 describes the Moorish Americans to the T. Don't listen to what them people be telling you, talking about, I'm your grand sheik, and I'm the one to make Moorish. It ain't nobody in the world can make a Moorish American but Allah. Okay? And even at that, Noble Ali clearly says in his Quran that no man has got the power to change the decent nature of another man, okay, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So in other words, can't nobody just give you no nationality. Can't nobody just come and join my temple, I'm going to make you a Moorish American. You get one of my cards, then you're a Moorish American. It don't work like that, okay? You ought to have enough of people enslaving you anyway. Let me go back up in Act 6 again. I'm going to show you how people will enslave you when you're ignorant and don't know no better, okay? The prophet says here, because these names, Negro, black, and colored, Ethiopian, was given to what? Slaves. Now, who were the slaves before slavery? They was West African nationals. Okay, in other words, they had countries, kingdoms, and tribes, and families, and a noble history. In other words, they had the master word here, which is also in Act 6, is descendant. They had a decent nature. Okay? They descended from somewhere. Okay? This was before they became slaves. Who were they before slavery? Okay? Because you must bear in mind, if you don't know the answer to this, you would think that the black people lived in Africa. You think Negroes came from Africa. Okay? You think colored people was in Africa. But this is not true. Okay? There was never any black people in Africa. There was never any Negroes or colored people in Africa. Okay? And Ethiopia, that is not the true and divine name of that land anyway. Okay? It was called Abyssinia. Okay? If you want to go back to Sheba, you can. But let's talk about Abyssinia, okay? As much as we read them as city and restaurants. All right? Now, okay, when it comes down to Negro, blacks, and colored, these are the names, Negro, black, and colored. Hold on to this, Mo, because let me tell you, this is very, very powerful stuff here. That was given to slaves by Masons, Western Freemasons. And while I'm on that, let me show you the difference between a Mason and a Western Freemason. I want to make that clear too. Okay? A Western Freemason must be a pale-skinned man, okay, of European descent. Okay? Age 21, minimum. Okay? He can't be less than 21. All right? And he must have sound mind and body. Okay? But the main thing, he must be a pale skin. Now, let me give you the benefits of knowing this knowledge. Do you know the age 21? Where else have you heard this name, age 21? Age 21. One of the greatest lying ages that you ever want to run into. But you got to be age 21 before you can buy liquor. You got to be age 24 before you can do a whole lot of things, okay? But they say that, but you can join the military and get shot up, blown away, and killed long before you can age 21, okay? Right? All right, now, bear with me, okay? There's a lot of things that you can do before you get 21, but being a Mason ain't one of them. Now, the reason why I want to point this out is because Noble Drew Ali was 16 years old when he left the United States and was in Egypt, Africa, without no parents or relatives, no guardian Noble Dwelly was not a Mason. Why? Because he was too darn young. There ain't a lodge in the world, nowhere, that accepts a child as a Mason. You must be at least age 21, even in a Negro Masonic lodge, okay? You still got to be 21. So Noble Dwelly was too young to become a Mason. Before he left the United States, there ain't got none in Africa, okay? And by the time he came back 10 years later, he was too wise to be a Mason. Because there ain't a God man in Africa in his right mind that would stoop down and become a crumb when he's the whole pie. Okay? So now, let's get back to how Western Freemasonry is mentioned here in Act 6. Okay? Now, who was it? Who was in office? Who was in power to give names, to change the decent status of a foreign national? Okay? Who was it? You got to bear in mind, Moors, because a lot of Moors talk about the UCC, the Commercial Code, UCC 1. Look, before you can write a code enforcing the law, you got to be in a position of power. Okay? You got to be. Before you can deal with commerce, before you can deal with trade, you got to be in position of power. Now, don't let the property fool you. Just because you got some Moors now, some African, and they some of them export, import, and they got grocery stores and supermarkets and da-da-da-da-da. Don't let that fool you. You can have a business all day, but that don't mean you got no power. You can have an organization all day, but that don't mean you got no power. The Moorish Science Temple has been around a long time, but it's still a non-governmental organization. It still ain't got no power. Okay? If you want to have power, you must have what? Free national. The root word of national is what? Nation. You got a free national standards, free national principles, and that will give you power. That's where you can have power in the said government. But somebody had to be in power to take away the nationality of the Moors of West Africa and give them slave names. Who was in position to have that kind of power in 1779? Look at the dates. Look at the dates. 1779. I heard some Moors, bear in mind, because something, I'm almost 70 years old, so I'm something saying it. My wife's always telling me, you ain't no time, got to watch it. You might say anything out your mouth. Well, the truth of the matter is that in 1779, when the United States Constitution was in full effect, somebody later said, we got some Moors around here, I think it was around the 1990s, they started this stuff, that there were 32 Moors that were signers of the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. 32 of them. It might have been more. I know that there was 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. There was also 56 signers of the United States Constitution. However, I don't know of any people that's wise enough or intelligent enough to write a national constitution. That's not an easy thing to do because it takes three criteria. We speak about that earlier. It takes three things in order to write a national constitution. But I don't know anybody that's smart enough to write a national constitution that would govern and support and protect an entire nation of people. And they're the same person that was smart enough to do that will write themselves in it as slaves in the very first article. Something's wrong with that picture. Why would you write a constitution and then write yourself in it as slaves when you, 32 of y'all that could have said otherwise? But I'll be the 3/5 of a person. Let me write myself in as it don't even make sense. And you know why? Because it didn't happen. The ones that wrote the United States Constitution was Western Freemasons. George Washington himself who was the head of the Masonic Lodge, said he wouldn't trust nothing but a Mason. Okay? Out of the 56 signs of the Declaration of Independence, out of 53 of them were Masons. Check the records, all right? In fact, just to prove it to you, remember I told you earlier that being a Western Freemason, a pale-skinned person, a man, was synonymous with being a slave master? The prophet called a slave master here in Acts 6, but now you don't want to acknowledge the fact that that's a Western Freemason. Well, all right, let's find out. George Washington, did you know he was a Mason? Will you admit that? Was he a Western Freemason of the Scottish Rite? Or was he there, okay, a most worshipful master? Was he or was he not? Was he also the 9th president under the British rule of the colonies? Later turned traitor and rebelled and started a revolutionary war and with the support of Morocco, and then he became the very first president of the new United States of America. He's still a Mason. Because the whole Revolutionary War wasn't about slaves, wasn't about they didn't like Britain. It was really between the Scottish and York Rite Order. It was two Masonic lodges that didn't like each other. That's what it was. And who was going to actually own this land? That's what the war was about. Okay? But moving right along, I said Noble Drew Ali mentioned Western Freemasons in Act 6. Let's prove it. Do you Moors know that, even the phone, do you Moors know that George Washington, President George Washington, and his wife Martha owned 400 West African national, the Constitution was in effect, owned 400 Negroes, okay? 400, owned 400 during his presidency, okay? Him and his wife Martha had more slaves than George did. But when they got married, he became president, they combined their little wealth. Because, see, it was a matter of prestige, diplomacy, hierarchy. In order for a Western Freemason, you couldn't be a good notarized Mason if you didn't own some slaves. That was the part of, remember the trophies? Remember the hippopotamus head and everything? Well, they had got the head of the West African slave man, but they couldn't, a guard man, but they could not, it would be too cannibalistic for them to take the head of a man, the head of a slave, and put it on a wall of their lodge. That was too cannibalistic. That just tells you that something was grossly wrong with you. Okay? So what they did, they took the headdress of the West African guardman and they put that in the lodge, although they had to tie the tassel down. Okay? The original fez, it didn't have no flat top to it, although it may have been round, but it was actually pointed just like the pyramid. It was apexed. They call it the dunce cap back in the school days, and when they got mad at one of the children, they put the fez, which was a dunce cap, it was shaped like a cone. It was cone shaped. And if you place that on the head of the child, put him in the corner for punishment, and call it a dunce. He was a dummy. Because that was their mockery of the West African headdress, the most #1 headdress, well-known headdress in the world, okay, was the fez. It was not flat or round top. It was actually pointed all just like the pyramids, okay? Why? Because the 7th chakra, the crown chakra, was able to reach. Remember the 5-pointed star? All your points, every part about you is a point. the head, the arms, and the legs. That's why Allah is in the five, okay? So what happened when it comes down to George Washington and the rest of the Masons, what they did, they buried the West African God man and his pyramid and his feds in their lodge. Okay? This is what Western Freemasonry is dedicated to. It ain't got nothing to do for the Moors, but it's about the Moors. Okay? So they buried the Moors in the lodge. In the United States Constitution, Article 1 of the United States Constitution, 3/5 clause. Okay? That remained in Act 6 from 1779 to 1865. All this was during the time of slavery. Slaves don't write constitutions, Moors. And listen, another thing. Take a special note at these years, 1779 to 1865. A lot of stuff took place during that. That's less than 100 years. But look at what happened. It was all this happened during the time of slavery. Let me tell you, the United States Constitution, let's start with that. The Prophet called it one of the greatest documents of all times. Why? Because anytime you can write a document that can enslave God, you done wrote something. Okay? You done wrote something. That's one of the greatest documents of all time. All right. Let's move right along. What else happened? What's one of the greatest things that happened under the 1779 to 1865? Oh, my goodness. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between Morocco and the United States. And the Moors are hollering to this day. We got a treaty. We didn't have no treaty then. We ain't got one now. How many slaves, according to the Prophet's law, 1779, we were slaves? How many slaves that you know writes treaties with anybody? That's a little simple question. Show me the slaves that write treaties. Okay, man, I don't want to put that on there. Slaves don't write treaties. Okay? You must be a sovereign power. You must be a nation of people with their own government in order to write a treaty, because this is an allied agreement. And allied means we have got something in common, some of equal balance, equal value, meaning one nation to another. We recognize you as being a government with which you can live. We recognize you as being a nation. So we're going to have an agreement. An agreement between governments, an agreement between sovereign powers is called treaties. Slaves don't make that. Why? Because slaves are property. Now, if your car can write a treaty, then we can say that maybe there was a possibility. All right? If your TV can write a treaty, maybe we can say that's a possibility. What about your cell phone? That's yours. That's property. Maybe that can write a treaty too. Okay? Moors, please. Let's check the record. 1779 to 1865, the Masons did a whole lot of stuff. Yes, George Washington wrote a treaty with the Sultan of Morocco. Why? Because the Sultan of Morocco helped gave George Washington the money to finance the war so he could break away from Britain. Okay? That's right. So George Washington called that gift so magnanimous. That's what I first heard that word, magnanimous. Okay, when he wrote a letter thanking the Sultan, all right. The Sultan was selling the Moors, his own national people, into slavery. This is where the Moors are making a terrible mistake. Worshiping and honoring Morocco. Morocco don't care nothing about the Moors. Let me say it's right. I'm sorry. The Moorish. Okay? If you think Morocco cares something about you, where have they been at all these centuries? Excuse me? Katrina took place. Even Castro tried to give a hand, but you didn't hear nothing from Morocco. What about the riots in the 60s? You didn't hear nothing from Morocco. What about all that lynching was going on, and they were killing so many Moors every day, they would call a pick nigger. Okay? Where was Morocco at then? Do you don't say they didn't know you was here? Sure they did. Okay? But they call you an infidel, they call you a heathen, and some other justified Islamic terms to justify them enslaving and selling you into slavery. Why? Because Morocco, you must remember, the treaty is about trade and commerce, Moors. Morocco was getting paid for every African national that they sold into slavery, every one that they could catch under the Islamic, I'm sorry, I'm not going to put that on Islam, under the Mohammedan rule. Okay? Under the Mohammedan rule, every West African national that they could catch, and there was millions of them. The whole Atlantic Ocean turned red with the blood of the Moors from Northwest Africa. That's why I being so hard on them brothers and sisters from them islands like Jamaica and Trinidad and so forth, and Haiti and whatnot. Don't you jump all the way over across West Africa and jumping the arms of Haile Selassie for nothing. That's why the Bible says you can't be Ethiopian. Okay? But you want to jump the whole Atlantic Ocean turned red for 300 years with transporting our people back. I mean, look how many hearts are broken because they woke up one morning and daddy wasn't there, their son wasn't there, their daughter wasn't there, their aunt wasn't there. How many people? Families, okay? Because George Washington was buying them. I said it. The Masons was buying them, but the main thing, the Sultan of Morocco, not just Muhammad, right on down the line, was steady selling more than catching them and selling them into the West. Why? Because business was good. The treaty is about trade and commerce, Moors. Business was good. If you don't say the business was good, between 1779 and 1865, some more law took place. What about that Armistead? That went to the Supreme Court. That was about West African nationals also. Okay? But what happened there? What's the difference between those West Africans and us that's under the 14th Amendment? What about them? What they did, they filed a verbal jurisdiction to the Supreme Court of the United States and found out, put an investigation, although they killed the pen that was on that ship, except for the captain and the mate, they found out, put an investigation, that the island of Cuba and the country of Spain and the United States, neither one of them had jurisdiction over the African nationals in their proper person, because no one could claim them. So they had to return them back to the west coast of Africa where they stole them from in the first place. Okay? But ain't nobody sent the rest of the Moors back. I just go on what happened between 1779 and 1865, what the Masons have done to you. Okay? Oh, my goodness. Something else happened. What about that Emancipation Proclamation, the Dred Scott decision? All this is handled by Mason. Who do you think was sitting up in the Supreme Court? Who do you think was running this country? I said George Washington and his buddies, they all, every president had to take an oath on a 16-pound Bible that was wrote by the Masons. George Bush, his daddy. Okay, keep on sleeping on these Masons, okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with being a Western Freemason, Moors, because a real Mason is a person who's learned how to master the self. That's what a true Mason is, okay? Straight out of Egypt, we call them Muslims. But you can't be a Muslim and a Western Freemason at the same time. Okay, so all those brothers walk around with your little aprons and your little white gloves and stuff that think y'all the stuff, and you Moors run around with your little black faces on and don't know what you're wearing. I think you ought to pay attention to Act 6. Okay, it is impossible for you to be a slave master and a Moorish American too. It just don't match. Now, if you wonder why it is that the Moorish American, although Allah has ordained them a holy prophet, the prophet brought the Moorish Americans everything they need to to save themselves as a nation. But they haven't become that nation yet. Guess why? Guess what? I give you two guesses more, and the second one don't count. Okay? Because you got too many Masons standing in the way who call themselves Moors. That's the reason why the Moorish American nation, because that's what Mason is all about. It's not designed for you to free yourself as a people. It's designed to enslave you. And if you don't believe, I was a member of the Moorish Scientific America from 1969 up to, what does the love put me in jail? The mid-90s, okay? Masonry. As I was telling you earlier, speaking from personal experience, yeah, Dr. R.W. he taught me Masonry, and so did Brother William Porter Hill taught me a lot about it too, okay? We knew every parish word, code, and thing, but it wasn't so much as them teaching it, it's how they taught it. The way the Prince taught it, he said, look, I'm going to teach you French. Just in case you happen to go to France or you meet a Frenchman. Okay? He didn't say, I'm going to teach you French so you can become a Frenchman. Okay? That's the difference. Because a lot of them want to get in the temple and they want to become Frenchmen. I'm sorry. They want to become Masons. So they put on the black feathers and the little black suit and they walk around enslaving their own mind, knowing their mind has never been free from the get-go. But they got the chest stuck out because they saw, I'm a Mo. How you going to be a Mo and a slave master of your own self at the same time? You just enslaved yourself. How did you do that? Okay, let's find out. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali says in Act 6, I ain't left Act 6 yet, all right? He said that you're part and parcel of this said government. He's speaking about the government in which you live, am I right? Okay. Now, if you ain't got no government and you run around hollering about what a grand sheik can do for you, then you have misinterpreted Noble Drew Ali's divine constitution bylaws. Because in his divine constitution alone, you can't have no one grand sheik run nothing. You ought to learn enough behind the Sultan of Morocco, for him breaking his foot off in your hind part. Ain't you learned nothing yet? Can't no one man run this. Look what you did to the Holy Prophet, good gracious. So the Prophet had brought you a government, an entire government, with a grand sheik, assistant grand sheik, a chairman, a grand body, a prophet, the principal, the Moorish America. Look, everything. All 7 apostles right there in Act 1. All 7 of the pillars that it takes to run a government in which you can live. This is the only government in which you can live. Now, you can keep playing around, jerking your mind around with these different religious organizations, talking about her statue and all this other kind all day. But guess what? Let me tell you what the Prophet had to say about the organization. Who knows the Moorish Scientific was better than Noble Drew Ali? Okay? It was the one founded. But for what purpose did Noble Drew Ali found the Moorish Scientific? Why was it founded in the first place? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. Now, how much of humanity has the Moorish Scientific America uplifted since July 12, 1929? Come on, Moore, come on now. It don't take long. What, you run out your little calculator? How many people, how many Moorish America has been uplifted by the Moorish Scientific America since July the 20th, 1929? And why is it out of 60 million Moorish Americans in the Northwestern Hemisphere, 99.9% of them never even heard of, don't even know their nationality? Why? When it's been 100 years since Noble Drew Ali brought us the truth. Why? Well, almost 100 years. We'll make it 98, give or take. 1913 to now. Okay? So we're not downing anybody. I'm trying to let you know the effects, the malignancies of Western Freemasonry, because if you don't know what will kill you, you won't know what's going to take to make you live, Moors. If you don't know what has been taking you out, if you saying? As a poor animal, Moors, listen to me. It's a poor animal that can't heal itself. Okay? Even a wounded dog got to sit there to lick its wound or go to the water or do something. Okay? But what has the Moors done for this sickness they call mental slavery? What have they done about it? What have they done to free their mind? What have they done? Look, you got to have a government in order to be a nation of people. They ain't a nation of people on the face of the earth that don't have a government. Why do you think they probably put the word government in your divine constitution bylaws 5 times? Okay? A lot of things took place between 1779 and 1865, including the Emancipation Proclamation. And a whole lot of people talking about Juneteenth, and it ain't free nobody. That was an article of war put on by President Lincoln, okay? Because he was at war. The prophet, what Lincoln himself said, look, if I could free, if I could say this out without freeing one slave, I was sure glad to do that. I got a whole volume of Abraham Lincoln works here. For anybody that really want to know what he thought about the Moors. Okay? Yeah, 1865. Had the Emancipation Proclamation been worth anything, Noble Drawley would have told us. But what did he say? He didn't say nothing about 1861. He said 1865. Okay? 1865. This is where it brought to the end of slavery. And what happened in 1865? That's when the United States Congress ratified into law the 13th Amendment, at least 2 sections of it. It was originally 20. Okay? But 18 of them they threw out the window. Okay? And because they only needed 2. One, to abolish slavery. That's the main one. Woo. The other one was to give Congress power to ride shotgun over the rest of it, okay? The only one article, and that's what abolished slavery. The other one was supposed to give us the reparations and the colonization of the Moors and all this other kind of stuff. But we have been hit in the head so hard by 1865 that when they abolished slavery, we were so drunk in such a stupor that at that time, we didn't realize, we thought we were free Negroes. Okay? And looking at Prince Hall, right on up to Jones Bay, there ain't a dime worth of difference between a Negro slave and a free Negro. Okay? If you're a Moorish American and you're not a nation of people, you're still a slave. If you don't believe me, check the 14th Amendment. Hey, but 2 things in the world, you're either a nation or you're an organization. I'm sorry. You're either free or you're a slave. Okay? That's how serious Western Freemasonry is. It's done tricked them all so bad, they got them enslaving themselves. But the prophet warned you about that too. Said, Moors, if you ain't careful, your own brother will enslave you again. How is that possible unless you got a mason in the pulpit on? Did I go to church on it? I'm sorry. Unless you got a grand sheik, a mason in the temple. And that's exactly what happened. If you wonder what happened the last 82 years, because you got too many masons blocking you in the way, enslaving you, burying you, and keeping you in that same shallow grave, talking about you eyes free. Okay, eyes free. How you going to be free in the same church that the prophet told you to turn it back, give it back? How is that going to free you? And if you think Western Freemasonry ain't the church, you better think again. All right? Why do you think that the wedding just took place with over in Britain on a Friday? I thought Sunday was oh my goodness. You know, the Moors must have come through there and told them when to take a bath. Okay? On Friday. Because why? The same colors of the hammer of the Union Jack flag is the same colors that the United States has in its flag. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So how is it that the Union Jack can have red, white, and blue, and the United States can have red, white, and blue, the same kind of flag, same kind of colors that the mama have? But yet still when it comes to the Moorish flag, you got a problem in the red flag with a 5-pointed green star. What's the problem, Moor? Huh? What's the problem? Ain't that the same kind of flag that your forefathers had? Oh, well, then what's the problem? Yours is what? Is over 10,000 years old. Morocco ain't. So the Pope must know what he was talking about. Okay? We became a nation of people in 1865 more. That's the truth. Okay? Why? Because we could not have become a nation of people. And that's the sole duty of a prophet, is to save nations. This is where the Moors have been tricking themselves in their head. Within the different, because they want to keep you enslaved in the different little organizations and groups and cliques and things. I extend the invitation to every last one of them. All the temples, all the groups, all the sororities, all of them. Come on, let's get together, formulate this cabinet so that we can establish a government in which we can live. We can free our children, our families, our women, and give you men some power, because y'all ain't got none. Right now, there ain't a Moorish brother right here that got no power. He can't even ball his fist up talking about I'm a black man. He can't say nothing. If he do, I'll put his woman on him. Try to take his yes downtown. I had a brother tell me that this reason. Brother, I'm going to have you arrested. Excuse me, what do you have to go to a slave master to do that? Because he ain't got no power? Who in the world in this country got the power to arrest the Mo? I don't think the Mo's got that kind of power, do you? Not that I'm doing anything wrong, mind you. Because I ain't doing the only thing that the West can handle is what I'm doing now, and that's the truth. Okay, that's the reason why they buried the Moors in the shallow grave under the code name of Hiram Abiff. Okay? That's the code name. But if you really want to know the truth about what happened to Hiram Abiff, ask Drew Ali, because Drew Ali said he's got one free national name. And in order to raise Hiram out of that shallow grave, whole and intact, I hope your sisters are listening to this, whole and intact. I'm not talking about the little big head. I said to raise the whole nation, whole and intact. Ain't but one way to do that, and that's by him having one free national name. Okay? If you want to see your brothers, if you want to see your children, yourself, and your family come out of that shallow grave of the 14th Amendment, because your sisters ain't got no more power than the brothers do. Don't let the Roman courts fool you. Just because they've been letting your sisters run around, what in the world you think you can do? You got the brothers, what? You got 13.6 million single moms out here. That's genocide. Any kind of way you look at it, all right? You got sisters saying they're so free out here, they pile up on top of one another. Ooh, baby, ooh. Please, you wouldn't do that if the man was in place. If your man ain't there in the place, how can you have a race? You're not even in the running. You can't be a nation of people without men and children and families and governments and seals and lack of masons. Okay? In order to be a nation of people, you've got to learn to love each other for who you are. You are African God people. Okay? Everything about you is divine. Everything about you is infinite, including your infinite wisdom. Okay? You've got that. But you've got to act like God before you can be God. Okay? You got to think like a God before you realize that you are. Okay? So when you say Islam, mean it. When you greet each other with peace, don't have your fist balled up.
That's right.
Well, peace, Mo. What in the world?
That's right, Mo. Break it down.
Okay. Where did it come from? All right? We are free people now. All right? But you've got to think free. You got to, in order to be free, you got to think free. The United States don't owe you nothing as far as your freedom is concerned. That's something that there's not play a little game with the Masons for a minute, but traditionally, what do Masons do? And their court, because the courtroom ain't nothing but a Masonic playground. So what do Masons do traditionally with property when commerce get running out their courts? What do they do? What they call it, black on black crimes or more on more crimes? You take Moors here to run them, they'll take a Moor to court so fast, you think he was a Negro. Another, but they're going to take another Moor, put the European on his brother. I'll have you arrested. Oops. Now, that ain't Masonry. Look, Moors, to tell you the truth, you ain't got to put the Moors, the Masons out, Moors, you ain't got to put the Masons out the temple. What you got to do is put the prophet in it. Okay? I'm not talking about just his name. Put the prophet Noble Drawley in your temples. Okay? Put the prophet Noble Drawley in your closet, in your heart, in your home, in your children. Okay? You want to know who to go to bed? Go to bed with the prophet. Okay? Go to bed with the prophet. You don't know what else to do. Go to bed with the prophet. Who else? You ain't never been to bed with a free man before anyway. You might as well do it now. Okay? Okay? You might as well free yourself because you know too much about slavery. This is the problem. And the prophet said the only system of slavery that we have now is what? Mental slavery. Okay? So if I seem a little bit, rocks in my jaws about this one, because I'm tired of seeing my people suffer. That's what it is. All right? I've been through some things that deal with this movement here to make a maggot puke. Okay? But I'm still here. And we still got a purpose. And we're looking forward because we still got a mighty, mighty mission to do. So we need to pay attention to Act 6. Listen to your prophet. Okay? He'll let you know what a Moorish American is. We're the city of the ancient Moabites. We inhabit no western shore of the Bible. If that fits you, then you don't need nothing but Noble Drawley, because he was the first Moorish American to teach you how to be a Moorish American. The rest of people, them grandchicks, they don't know. If they knew how to be a Moorish American, you'd be a free nation of people by now. They don't know. All that old slick, he's a sheik, he's an ADAP, he's an ADAP and all that. No, they don't. There ain't an ADAP in the world that's not free, except here. That's the first duty of an ADAP is to be God. Why? Because you cannot enslave a God. Okay? That's why the very first question you run into was what? Who made you? So you can conquer and get over the weaknesses that been keeping you from being free. All right? You got to realize who your enemy is. All right? Western Freemasonry is not your friend. That's what was used to enslave you. You don't believe me? Read that Moroccan Treaty again if you don't believe me. Read the Dred Scott decision again if you don't believe me. Read the 3/5 Clause. Then again, read the 14th Amendment if you don't believe me. He said there was no need for it. Read the 14th and 15th Amendment. So you say, I asked a brother today, I said, well, Mo, you Moorish America, what's the name of your country? You know the Mo told me? He said, well, the United States of America. That's sad. That is so sad. But the Holy Prophet himself said, just because you was born here don't make you no citizen. So where's your government? How are you going to be free? And you owe this to your children, Moors. This is what I'm talking. You owe this to the prosperity of your future generations. You want everybody else to come like you did, suffer, go through the same ignorant stuff that you did, like we did. No, you don't want that on your children. I got 2 other children. Ain't none of them making a stand right now, but that's all. It ain't because I didn't put it out there. Okay? It ain't because I didn't give it to them. They got the freedom if they want it. Whatever they look around, I guess they looking around for somebody else. I don't know. They ain't on me no more. I'm got to do what I got to do. Okay? We have a job to do. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open the floor. So I don't know if the grand chick back by now or not. But anyway, I'll open up the floor. Anybody got any questions, please start 64. Anything about Western Freemasonry that you want to ask me about? The Moorish Temple, come on with it. Star
Islam.
64. Islam. Identify yourself, where you calling from.